as you and I are progressing through these videos together, we're getting a better understanding that, hey, this AAA stuff, authentication, authorization, and accounting, it can be used to really control an enterprise network regarding who can log in, what can they do while they're there, and the accounting piece as well. So to help reinforce what we've covered so far, let's do this. Let's take the scenario that we've been building together over the last couple of videos with the user Bob, who has to log into router 1, but instead of just router 1 having a password or a locally configured username for Bob, let's have the router check with the AAA server using the commands that we introduced in the last video. So I'm going to do this in Packet Tracer, and I encourage you to do it step by step along with me. If you want to watch the video once first and then launch Packet Tracer and step through it, either way you want to do it, it's going to help reinforce the commands so we can better understand and differentiate the concepts of authentication, authorization, and accounting as it's implemented in a Cisco network. So here's our plan. Here is the commands that we talked about in the previous video. Oh, I just sneezed. Oh, excuse me. So leveraging the topology that we've designed and the commands that we're going to implement, let's get to work. So here in Cisco's Packet Tracer, let's go ahead and do File and New and start a brand new project from the ground up. We're going to need a router. So we'll click on Network Devices near the bottom left, click on the router symbol, and let's just drag up a router. I'm going to grab a 2911. If you want to grab the same devices, that'd be awesome as well. That way we can have a very similar experience here. And I'm going to rename this Router 1, and away we go. All right, next we're going to need a switch. And let's go ahead and click on Switches in the bottom left-hand corner. And I'll grab a 2960, put it right there. And I will rename that SW just for my own liking. Sounds good. And then we'll go ahead and click on End Devices right here. And we'll drag and drop a PC. Fantastic. And we're also going to drag and drop a server that's going to act as our AAA server. In fact, I'm going to rename those. I'm going to call this Bob's PC. Fantastic. And for the server, we'll go ahead and call this AAA SRVR. Alrighty. And let's connect them all together. That'll be helpful for connectivity. And we'll click on the lightning bolt icon and use the auto connect tool. And we'll go from the switch to Bob's PC. And we'll click on the auto connect tool again from the AAA server to the switch. And once again, we'll go from the switch to router 1. And then we can reposition these as we want to so we can see all the labels. All right, that looks good. Fantastic. And then I'm going to slide this over to the left so I can have that topology in front of me while we configure this. And let's take a look at our plan again. So in our plan, we're going to use the 10.0.0 network with .1 on R1, .2 on Bob's PC, and .3 on the server. Let's do those next. So we'll start with R1. We'll click on R1 to bring up a console to R1. We'll say no to the initial config. We'll type in enable, configuration mode, interface gig 0/0. In my topology, that's the interface we're going to configure. We'll give it a no shutdown, and we'll give it an IP address of 10.0.0.1 with an 8-bit mask, and it is done. Great. Next, let's go to Bob's PC, and here on Bob's PC, we'll bring that over a little bit. We'll click on config, click on fast Ethernet 0, and give him the IP address of 10.0.0.2 with a 8-bit mask. Great, fantastic. And we'll go to the AAA server, and on the AAA server, let's give it an IP address by clicking on config, click on fast Ethernet 0, and give it the IP address of 10.0.0.3 with an 8-bit mask. Wonderful. Now, while we're here at the server, let's go ahead and configure the server pieces as well. And let me bring those back so we can review those together. So on the server, we want to tell the server that there's a client R1 at 10.0.0.1 and that we're using this password, AAA-CS-PW. We also want to train the AAA server that there's a user account called Bob and his password is going to be AAA-user-PW. Super. So let's do those both right now. So we'll click on Services tab here on this AAA server. And on the left-hand side, we'll go down to AAA. Awesome. We'll click on the radio button for on. Fantastic. We'll specify the server type. Is it Radius or TACAX? We want to use TACAX based on our plan. And then we'll put the client name. Now this is the client name. This is R1's information that we're expecting to have requests come in from this client. So R1 is, his name is R1, and his IP address is 10.0.0.1. We'll hit the tab, and then we'll go ahead and put the password in, which is AAA-CS-PW. And then we'll click on Add. Boom! We now have R1 as a client at 10.0.0.1 using TACAX. AAA-CS-PW is the key or password that'll be used between the AAA server and R1. All right, we're making great progress. Let's add Bob also while we're right here on the AAA server. So if we go down a little bit, we have user setup. So under user setup, we'll add a username of Bob. We'll use the password of, and I'm just going to do a copy paste here. because it's already on my screen. I'll do a copy, and I'll right click and I'll do a paste. And now we have both those pieces set up. We have R1 set up as a TACACS client, and we also have a user account for Bob set up on the AAA server. Fantastic. Next, let's go to router 1. So if we close this window for the server, and we go back to router 1, let me go ahead and click on them over here. And I'm going to leave the commands up here so we can see those as well as we go through it. So here on the router, let's go ahead and change the host name. If this is really R1, we want to see that as the prompt just to remind us of which device we're on. And let's do a AAA space and a question mark. And what we're going to do is we're going to focus, first of all, about enabling this AAA new model with the command new-model. So that enables new access control commands and functions. It disables old commands. And we might think, what do you mean it disables old commands? Well, check this out. I'm going to hold off on that command just for a moment. Let's do a do show run. And then hit spacebar a few times. See how this default login is here on the VTY lines? Well, if we do AAA new model, press enter, and then hit up arrow key a couple times, check this out. I'll do spacebar all the way to the end. See how it took away that login? So the overall defaults are changing now that we entered this command, AAA new-model. You only have to do it once, and now it's in the config. Now we can start using the advanced commands for authentication, authorization, and accounting, including creating things like method lists and applying those to VTY lines, which we're going to do here in just a moment. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and specify that there's a TACACS server sitting at 10.0.0.3, and here's the key to use. So we take that command and paste it in. And now router 1 knows about the TACACS server at 10.0.0.3, and it also knows what key to use as it communicates with that server. Next, we're going to create a method list, and I'll do this by hand. AAA space authentication space, and this is going to be a method list for logins. So I'm going to put in the keyword login space, and then it's asking me for a name. And the name we're going to use for this method list is called use-AAA space, and then we're going to specify what this method includes. And we want to specify use one of the group from TACACS, one of the TACACS servers. Now, what we could also do here is we could also add on alternate methods. So if no TACACS servers could be reached, they were all down for some reason, we could have a second method, maybe a group of radius servers and a space. If those couldn't be reached, then perhaps a third option and a fourth option as part of this method. For this demonstration, we're going to use one method, and that is TACACS only. So I'll press enter. We now have this method list. And the last step right here is to apply this to our VTY lines. So we'll go to line VTY 0 through 4, our 5 VTY lines. And then from here we'll say for login authentication, we want to use the method list called use-AAA, which implies that we want to check with a TACACS server to verify the username and password if somebody tries to log on via these VTY lines. So we'll press enter, and then we're done. So we've just implemented these components right here, these commands on the router to have that router be a AAA client. Now it's checking for logins on the VTY lines. It's going to check with the AAA server to verify those accounts. Another really cool thing we do is do a show, run, pipe, include, user, press enter. There are no local user accounts on this router whatsoever. So when Bob logs in, there's no Bob account locally on this router. Also, one other cool thing, and because we're in Packet Tracer, it won't harm anything. Let's do a debug of AAA authentication. And then we can see debug messages regarding what's happening in the background in the brain of this router when Bob authenticates, regarding which method list he used and how he was authenticated. So with that in place, let me minimize the commands here, and let's go to Bob's computer, and let's go to the desktop tab, and let's open up a command prompt. And we'll just do a telnet over to 10.0.0.1. So let's test it. This is good news. It's asking us for a username. I'm going to put in Bob, press enter. And now we'd put in Bob's password, which I need to bring up. So let's take a look. Bob's password is AAA-user-PW. Sounds good. And press enter. Maybe I fat fingered it. Bob, AAA-USER-PW, enter. Invalid login. All right. Well, we're going to troubleshoot this live because this is just like the real world. Let's take a look and see if we have all of our pieces in place. Let me minimize this console, and let's go back to the AAA server and make sure we have the right passwords in place. Oh, there we go, right there. I got the wrong password. So I got excited. Let me take a look at my notes here. So Bob's password is AAA-user-password, and I put AAA-CS-password, and that's why the authentication was failing. Let me let me remove that. And let me add Bob again with the right password, Bob. And Bob's password is AAA-user-PW. I'll copy that. I think I copy-pasted it before. I just copied it from the wrong field. Ouch. All right, so we'll add that. Now we have the right password. Let's try that again. So we'll go back to Bob's computer and hit the up arrow key to a telnet, Bob. And the password is AAA-user-PW. Enter. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited I can't type. AAA-user-PW should be Bob's account. Let's try it again. Bob, AAA-user-PW. Enter. Ah! So part of that was me fumble fingering the password on the second attempt, and on the first one I was putting in the wrong password altogether. So let's go back to the console and take a look at the debug messages, which by this time are going to be pretty exciting. So back here on the router, there we go. The first time that I tried to log on using the wrong password, it picked the method list called use-AAA. And actually, let me bring the commands up as well. And because I was putting in the wrong password and I tried a few times, it failed. And then when I tried it again, it failed. And I tried it again, it failed. And then finally, it was successful because I had the right password, and that's when it let me in. And in a production environment, if we were to put a protocol analyzer right here on the line, or either here or here, somewhere between R1, the AAA client, and the AAA server, we would see that the TACACS protocol was being used. It is using TCP at layer 4, and it encrypts the payload of all the packets. So anybody eavesdropping who doesn't have that password that was used to encrypt and decrypt the traffic wouldn't be able to make sense of it. On the other hand, if we had chosen Radius, Radius uses UDP at layer 4. It does not encrypt the entire session, but it does encrypt the passwords that are being sent. So somebody eavesdropping is not going to be able to discover passwords that the router is asking the server about, even if we're using Radius. So in this video, and bonus troubleshooting section because I put the wrong password in, we had the opportunity to see the interaction between a TACACS client or AAA client and a AAA server. When a user logs in or connects to the router, instead of checking for local passwords or local user accounts, it's been trained on the VTY lines to go ahead and use a method list that says check with the AAA server. And then if the AAA server says, yep, that's Bob, that's his right password, at that moment, the authentication message can be sent back to the router saying, yep, Bob's good to go. Now, this same kind of logic about creating method lists and checking with the server for individual commands for authorization and also for accounting records, it's very similar as far as the flow. We create method lists, we specify what we want to have happen regarding authentication, authorization, or accounting, or all three, and then we have that information interacted with between the AAA client and the AAA server. So in this set of videos regarding understanding and differentiating between AAA, we've had the opportunity to see the basic concepts of it and also see an example of it at work here inside Packet Tracer. And I would encourage you at some point to take a few minutes and actually practice in Packet Tracer where it's safe, you're not going to blow up anything, and practice with a few of the basic concepts that we've talked about to get an even better understanding of AAA and how it works. So thanks for joining me in these videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.